Do you ever say gay to mean rubbish?
I do say it in a way to kind of take the mickey off someone in a humorous way, but I don't mean it in an offensive way.
It's like to make fun if something's like really mushy. Someone's being like really mushy or something like that. We're like, that's so gay.
Oh, that's gay. But like not in a like not like in a direct negative way, but like in a way like I don't know, it's really weird.
Lately, calling something gay as a way of describing it as rubbish, uncool or embarrassing has become commonplace. But where does it come from? And should we rethink our use of language? In Britain, 99% of lesbian, gay and bisexual young people hear the word gay used negatively while in school, and 84% feel distressed when they hear it used negatively. Yet, according to a 2015 YouGov survey, almost half of all 18 to 29-year-olds think the term "that's gay" is fine to use. There's a big contrast in views, with many people claiming it's not homophobic, and others claiming this trend needs to be stopped. I'm Amy Ashenden, and I'm travelling around the southeast of England to meet gay and straight people. Young.
I also say it means happy, so...
And older.
It's like, why would I say I'm a really crap person?
To find out why, I'll speak to the largest gay rights organisation in Europe, which is campaigning against people saying gay to describe something as embarrassing or weak, and meet the university academic that argues saying "that's gay" is harmless.
There's no intent to marginalise with "that's so gay."
So I want to start by finding out what the general public think about using the word gay negatively, whether they say it or whether they find it offensive. So I'm in Southampton city centre today, and I'm going to try and hopefully catch a few people out and about and see what they think. Do you ever say gay in a negative way?
Sometimes.
And do you not think it's offensive?
Not to another people, like maybe when we talk in between, maybe like that, but I wouldn't be talking like that to another person who I think is gay, no.
Yeah, I do.
Why do you say it?
It's just, I don't know. I've grown up in an environment where everyone says it, so I just caught on.
Do you think when you say it, do you think about gay people and gay identity?
No, not like that. I'm not homophobic. It's just a word that I've caught on to. It's not good, it's not appropriate to use it, I don't think, but I just use it because I've been saying it for a long time now.
Work in a school when the children sort of say it, and
yeah, I think it's quite an immature thing to say. Like, I think it comes where we see the younger children say it, like
in the wrong
context, in a negative way.
And how would you feel if your children used it in a negative way?
I think I'd be quite insulted. Wouldn't have it.
He's feeling gay, happy.
Yeah, she's older. I never do that personally now.
Do you hear other people use it in that way?
Of course, all the time.
Do you hear it said a lot at school?
Yeah, all the time.
How does it make you feel when you hear it?
Yeah, it makes me feel a bit angry for people who try and make it bad to be like that.
Because gay means happy, beautiful. It should have no other connotation whatsoever, especially whatever has been put on it in the last few years.
So I've spoken to really a lot of people today, and there's such a wide range of opinions, it seems. Lots of people using the word gay negatively and being defensive about it. Lots of people saying they would never say it, and others saying they would say it but only among straight people. And one thing that really surprised me is that all the older people I spoke to said they're really shocked and confused why younger people would use the word gay negatively and say that's so gay, which is quite a contradiction really, because that's the generation that we maybe consider to have grown up in times that were less pro-gay, but younger people are maybe more aware of the issues that gay people face, and yet they're the ones defending the use of this language. So I think I need to speak to some more young people and see what's going on.
I'm going to meet students from the University of Southampton. They all identify as straight, so I'm hoping to get an insight into how it's become so commonplace.
So you guys are both English literature students. You must think about the way you use language a lot. What do you think about using gay in a negative way?
The way I think about it is that I don't think to a heterosexual kind of audience, amongst heterosexual people, I don't think it breeds homophobia necessarily. I think it's a word which people use. I don't understand the gravity of it, but I don't think it makes you think more negatively about gay people.
I mean, same with me. Like, I used to use it a lot as a kid. I don't think I had any idea what it meant, because you were saying earlier actually that I don't think it's taught in primary schools, especially like what homosexuality actually is. And maybe that's where the problem lies, in the sense that there's not that connection with the word gay and homosexuality.
I have a gut feeling that whenever I said that, it was meant with absolutely no harm to other people. I think there's kind of two levels to it. Like, sure, like there's always kind of negative connotations. If you're using it gay bad, that's always going to be a bad thing. But at the same time, all the intentions behind it were never like that ever. It was just something that people said. Yeah. It's a difficult one.
So the girls claim there was no intentional homophobia in saying the word gay negatively. But what about the LGBT community? I'm going to meet Kaz Priest of the Student Union. He's transgender, which means he doesn't identify with the gender he was assigned with at birth.
I hear a lot of people say, oh, we do all this for you in the LGBT plus community, and you can't let us into your club and use the word gay. And it's uncomfortable to try and explain that you don't get to, it's not a cute little club, it's a lived experience which people have to deal with every day. And it's not something as lighthearted as it seems. So if you're not part of that and you use that word, especially in a negative way, it makes it quite unpleasant, and it just reiterates that we're not taken seriously.
Having spoken to Kaz, it's quite obvious how problematic it can be when a phrase that refers to a minority is used by the wider public. But I want to know if there's any gay people that see it differently and think that the word has simply gained a new meaning. While on campus, I'm also going to meet Imogen Andrews.
I've seen the word gay used in multiple different contexts for varying different reasons from varying different generations. I mean, I have a godson who's 9. I've seen him use it, but it's never really been as an insult. It's changed. It seems to be like a very light kind of, not exactly insulting kind of way. So like, it was very strange when he was having this sword fight with his friend, and then he fell down to the ground and he went, "Ah, you lose, you gay," and started beating him, and everyone was laughing. Nobody took it as an insult, but it's still kind of derogatory, but they don't actually seem to see it that way, if that makes sense. Like, I never really got called gay massively at school. But it was used as a derogatory term for people. Like, if you called someone gay, they would take it offensively and call you a name back. And I think that's the difference now between like my generation and my godson's generation. They don't go, "Oh yeah, well, you're a back." Yeah, they just laugh and shrug it off and continue on with life like it didn't mean anything, which I think is good and shows that the word is evolving. I mean, like, South Park have done it. They turned the word fag to mean from gay to a Harley Davidson dickhead driver, and by the end of the episode it had been changed in the Oxford Dictionary and all the gay people were having a parade. So it was nice. It's funny.
So I've just met up with Imogen, and it's really clear that it's not as simple as gay people are offended and straight people don't care. It's actually much more complex than that, and generational differences definitely play into it. She also mentioned South Park, so I've just been looking it up, and the programme used the word ironically to make quite a key point.
That's gay. You're gay.
But perhaps it's been a bit lost as people have adopted the word gay negatively in their everyday speech. There's also been memes created and shared on social media, such as the gay seal, and people have defined the phrase "that's gay" in very contrasting ways on Urban Dictionary. So someone's put "that's gay," phrase used to signify a stupid, unwanted or weird idea, but then someone else has put, some people say "that's gay" or "you're gay" as an insult. If you're one of those people, brace yourself, you're in for a shock. Gay isn't a synonym to stupid, weird or uncool. So even on a platform that young people use, there's really contrasting views. There's also a programme in America called Community, and there's a clip from it where a college student shouts "gay" at a teacher for being boring or stupid.
Gay!
And that clip's actually been viewed 1 million times. I've also found that the Gay, Lesbian and Straight Education Network in the US has been running a campaign against the negative use of the word gay. So this really isn't just a UK thing.
It's been a while since this trend took off, so I want to find out if it's still said in schools. I got in touch with a Year 10 pupil in a secondary school in Kent. He told me, "I do hear it a lot in school and around town, people think of it either as a joke or a proper insult. I'm not gay, but I know people that are, and I think this phrase should be stopped because it sounds as if the people that say it think that it's wrong to be gay. So we know the use of gay as a synonym for rubbish is a recent addition, but how has the word gay changed over time from its original meaning of happy? I'm going to meet English professor John McGavin at the University of Southampton to find out. So how has the word gay changed over time?
Well, it's changed considerably, but it was always very varied in its meaning originally. It came into English through Old French and Anglo-Norman, but even before it came into English, it had a wide variety of uses, from carefree, licentious, amorous. It could even be applied to animals referring to the speckled colour of their coats. So this is a word with a wide variety of meanings already before it comes into English. When it was first introduced as slang for homosexual people, or by homosexual people, not all of them approved of it because it had had an association with prostitution, funnily enough, in the 19th century. And so the homosexual community itself was not wholly keen on embracing it. But by the 1960s, it had become the preferred word, I think, a more general word. And of course now, it's a word which is used by the wider community than those people to whom it refers. It doesn't surprise me that a word which refers to sexual orientation, which of course is a real issue for young people growing up, becomes a word which some people will want to use defensively by using it aggressively. You see what I mean? So somebody who is anxious about their own masculinity or whatever will use a word which seems to be accepted in the society at large in order to defend themselves by giving it a negative colour. I mean, young people are constantly remaking words anyway.
So some people say they use the word gay negatively and they don't even associate it with gay people, and they're quite defensive about it and say that it can't be homophobic because they didn't intend to be homophobic. Yeah. What would you say to that?
Well, I'm interested in the fact that they're defensive about it. I think all of us feel anxious about the linguistic face that we present to the world. And none of us likes to feel that the language we use causes offence. And it may well be that what they're defensive about is actually that they don't want to discover that words they use in a very careless or unthinking or indifferent way do actually cause offence, or that even if they don't cause offence, they are maybe words that they should think about a bit more. My view about this is the same as my view about using other words which some people find offensive, such as the N word, which actually we still can't bring ourselves to say. I think it is right that other people feel, that they should not use it. Not because any particular word is guilty or innocent, because all it is a word, but because it trails clouds of guilt with it, and it causes offence to others.
Having heard about the history of the word gay, I want to find out more about what's happening currently. I'm going up to London to meet Debbie Johnson. She's an activist, so I want to ask her why some people are fighting this use of language. So where do you think using the word gay negatively comes from? And is it necessarily harmful?
I think it's very harmful. Language is really important and triggering, actually, and it's not to do with the intent, it's to do with how it lands on the other person. And if there's a risk of it hurting another person and landing in a negative way, then it absolutely should not be used.
What if the person says, I didn't mean it in that way, I'm not homophobic, I have gay friends? Should we then still be worrying about it?
Yes. Those are the worst answers to any question. when someone says that offended me, oh, but it didn't offend my friends who are of that identity. What's that got to do with it?
Do you think we've got bigger issues to worry about, or actually does using the word gay negatively say quite a lot about how society views LGBT people?
There's big issues, there's small issues, there's medium-sized issues. I think they all need fighting, actually, because they all have an effect on people. And I think for someone to say it offended me, I mean, that's a big deal, because a lot of people cannot say that. They will feel it and go home feeling it. Sure. Whether that's feeling less than, whether that's feeling shame, whether that's feeling self-hatred.
So maybe it has caught on in such a way because the people that it offends, they might find it difficult to confront the person that said it and to explain why it's offensive.
Yeah, like any slur.
Debbie made an interesting point about people who dislike the phrase finding it difficult to confront others. So I'm going to Winchester to meet Elliot Page, who is gay and has experienced violent and verbal incidents of homophobia in the past. I want to ask him how hearing the word gay negatively compares to his other experiences.
I can understand the frustration that people get with the use of the word gay in a negative way, because it is essentially another brick in the wall in our culture and society. It's an extension of that kind of systematic homophobia that exists and is prevalent in our society and our culture. It's like we can't even choose words like gay, which originally meant happy. We can't use these words to be proud because society will take that from us. It means that you lose the language and ability to be proud in yourself if you have those words taken away from you. But I think that the specific use of that word and words like that are just a small drop in the ocean of a much bigger issue that exists.
So Elliot thought using the word gay negatively was part of a wider problem, but I wonder whether hearing this kind of language might still make a gay person less likely to come out. So I got in touch with a 23-year-old gay man that used to go to school in Oxford. As Elliot suggested, the language he heard at school made it difficult to come out as gay. This guy wants to remain anonymous, but he told me, hearing people say gay to describe things as uncool, then working out that I would have to carry around that label for the rest of my life was a horrific realisation for my teenage self. Hearing this banter, I began to feel an intense self-loathing, which has taken a long time to get over. I want to get a wider view of young people's experiences, so I'm going to visit Carla Barrett, who researches the lives of gay people across the UK. So Carla, you're a PhD student at the University of Southampton. Tell me a bit about your research.
I'm just finishing up my PhD, and that's been looking at the everyday lives of LGBT people, and especially thinking about their experiences of the home and their divisions of domestic labour and childcare. But one thing that also came up through the project is their experiences of homophobia when they were younger and their experiences of homophobic language when they were younger. And, you know, oftentimes people were saying that when they were younger, the only real experiences they had of hearing words like gay and lesbian were in a negative context, you know, when people are using them as an insult, you know, deliberately trying to offend people, and how negative uses of language in school led them to feel as though they had to be closeted and they couldn't come out, or just, you know, made it more difficult for them to come to terms with their sexuality, perhaps because of the negative ways in which this language is used. I don't use it myself personally. The phrase like "that's so gay" really annoys me, like I really don't like it. I feel like I can't differentiate between people using gay in a negative way, like as an insult, and gay as an identity marker in a way that I use to describe my identity.
So Carla's research showed that school was a key factor, and that this is an issue which strongly affects young people. An organisation that is currently working with young people to campaign against the negative use of the word gay is Stonewall. It's the largest lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender rights group in Europe, and their headquarters are next door to the South Bank in central London. I'm going to their offices to meet Programmes Officer Alex Newton to find out why they've been running this campaign and what the response has been like.
So how is Stonewall campaigning against the word gay being used negatively?
In November 2013 for Anti-Bullying Week, Stonewall launched a new campaign to tackle the casual use of homophobic language. And what we mean by casual is those phrases like "that's so gay" or "you're so gay" that we know are so common in primary and secondary schools across the country. So we produced lots of new posters that we sent to schools, and also teaching resources for teachers to use to give them new strategies for challenging homophobic language.
And why has Stonewall chosen to campaign on this particular issue? Are there not bigger issues we should be worrying about?
There are lots of important issues for schools in tackling homophobic, biphobic and transphobic bullying, but what we find is that schools that have higher levels of casual homophobic language, so phrases like "that's so gay" or "that homework's gay," you know, "miss, your trainers are gay," that kind of casual homophobic language, those schools also have higher rates of homophobic bullying as well, and there is quite a direct link like that. So by stopping the kind of negative connotations of the word quite early, we're actually stopping some of the more harmful consequences down the line.
Just how damaging is this language for gay people to hear?
It's incredibly damaging. In 2012, the University of Cambridge produced a piece of research called the School Report for Stonewall, and that found that 99% of lesbian, gay and bisexual young people hear those words, hear phrases like "that's so gay" and "you're so gay", and 84% said they were hurt or distressed by those. And it's quite easy to think of why. I mean, when you constantly hear gay being associated with bad or broken or defective or rotten, you're going to think that gay is something like that. So it has really harmful consequences for the people who don't have much experience or are struggling to work out what they are. So Stonewall's really hopeful that we can stamp out "that's so gay" and "you're so gay" and other homophobic language. We've actually seen quite a bit of progress. So Stonewall's done quite a bit of research with teachers over the past 5 years, and in 2014 what we saw was that even though most teachers were still hearing homophobic language, 9 in 10 secondary school teachers, 7 in 10 primary school teachers, teachers who were hearing it very often, the number was a lot lower than it was 5 years before that.
From what Alex had told me, Stonewall's research makes a very strong case about the damaging effect of using the word gay negatively, claiming it has a direct link to the culture of homophobia in schools. I want to know what it's like to be a teacher in schools today, hearing pupils say these sorts of things in class.
So today I'm going to visit Vicky in Hampshire, and she's a secondary school teacher and also a parent, and she's gay herself, so it's going to be really interesting to find out how she reacts in the classroom when she hears people say "that's gay" in a negative way, and how she's supposed to deal with that. So you're working at a secondary school. Do you often hear young people say "that's gay" as an insult?
Yes, I have done. I think it has sadly become quite normalised. You know, to say whether they are identifying gay as in being homosexual or not, I'm not 100% sure. I couldn't really say, but I'd say it is quite normal for them. They just come out with it and don't actually realise, unless they're redirected, the connotation that it could have.
I've spoken to some young gay people, and they think that school is where education about this should happen.
Totally agree.
So how do you react when you hear people saying it?
Generally, I generally ask them what they mean by that, and point out that gay actually in the dictionary means homosexual. You know, I try to I don't make light of it. I do make it. I try to do quite firmly, but in a quite relaxed, informal way. Especially if it's in and around corridors of school and out in the playground, I will definitely pick them up on it.
Being gay yourself and also being a parent, if you hear gay being used in such a negative way, thrown around, does that feel quite personal to you?
It has done in the past. 14 years ago, sadly lost my brother due to a homophobic attack, so that meant it resonated really a lot to me. But obviously now I keep my personal and professional life completely separate. And if it, I don't advertise the fact, but I don't hide the fact.
Do you think it makes it more difficult for students that are gay or thinking of coming out of the closet at school when they're hearing that their peers saying "that's gay"?
Yeah, very. I mean, some of the things you hear. Sometimes I do wonder if it's because they actually are having mixed feelings about their sexuality, that they express it so aggressively, you know, because, yeah, it definitely does. I think the whole thing of society does. I think, you know, it's not, you know, not just in school, but peer pressure is quite impressionable, I think. And I think that's why they don't, it's very rare to have students that are out at school, very, very rare, that in the 15, 20 years that I've been working in education, because a lot of staff really don't, I don't personally think they're probably that comfortable talking about it.
It was really sad to find out what happened to Vicky's brother, but I think she is really brave for tackling homophobia in the classroom when other teachers sometimes turn a blind eye. I want to find out whether saying gay negatively is common in primary schools, especially as sex ed is even more restrictive for young pupils. So this afternoon I'm off to meet Matthew Rumble, who has given his Year 6 class a lesson specifically on the phrase, "That's so gay."
So we talked about gay people, bad words, and why we don't use them. After that, I asked them to try to sense about what they've learnt. So a lot of them went with the fact that it's about 6% of the population that are gay, which I think surprised a lot of them. And the last one was simply what I need to remember. And for the most part, most of them went with don't use gay as an insult, which is very promising. This was put together by a girl who had a lot of things to say on the subject, all of them positive, but she didn't really have any experience. She'd just grown up in a home where they told her that it was normal, and it forced them to really address how using this word, what it says about them. Not what it's saying, not even just what it's saying about the other person, but what it says about them that they use that word like that. The really nice thing is that obviously we're going through a period where, because there's so much discussion on this, a lot of children's authors do develop books based on the subject. I've actually got one here, which is called And Tango Makes Three. I must admit, looking at it from an educational perspective, a lot of teachers say that in 20 years' time it'll be exactly the same as everyone else and no one will notice it. In some ways that gives me hope, and yeah, I do realistically believe it, but in some ways I think it's kind of awful that we're saying that. It's along the lines of we're just waiting for all of the people who believe that to become outdated and kind of the minority.
So it's clear education on what it's like to be gay often seems to be lacking. But do people that actively protest for gay rights consider the negative use of the word gay a top priority to tackle? So today I'm heading up to London to go to Pride. I'm going to hopefully speak to lots of people in the crowd there. So it'll be quite interesting to see what people think of this and whether it's still such a controversial thing to say.
With straight people as well, and they just slip up and they'll be like, "Oh, that's so gay," and it's like, wait a minute. Even though they don't mean it negatively per se, it is a negative connotation.
I'm from Finland and I do hear it quite a lot. It's quite common to use "that's so gay" if you mean something that is not really nice. And
how does it make you feel when you hear it?
It often makes me quiet and stop and think a bit, because it's really hitting me, and I personally have tried to use the word in more a positive sense. If I like something, I try to say that's gay, to kind of fight against the word, using the word in a bad sense.
I think in the day and age that we're living in now,
everybody's awareness and education levels are of a standard where they know what they're saying. So then I look at that person and I think to myself, why are you using it as a derogatory tone? I find it offensive. And there's so many other words in the dictionary that can be used. I don't agree with it.
Anyway, because we're brown as well, they're Asian. It's very hard in our culture.
Oh yeah, all the time. It's like quite a young person's thing, like primary school, secondary school, it's like, oh, so gay.
And how does it make you feel when you hear it?
I sort of shrug it off. Yeah, it doesn't really bother me. I know they don't mean it personally. Most of the time they don't really understand what they're saying.
It's ridiculous. It's ignorant, right? They obviously don't know what the word means if they're using it in a negative context.
Do you think they mean to be homophobic?
Some people do, yeah. Like we was walking in Lakeside the other night and you just see people shout out lesbians, but it just doesn't, you just don't phase it, like shrug it off.
Do you hear it a lot at school?
Yeah.
And how do you react when people say it?
I get like, I go all quiet, I just sit there, just like, don't bring it up really.
I'll get pissed off. Like, I start saying that it's not a bad thing. Like, it shouldn't be used as an insult. So.
We're in year 11, so you don't hear it at our age, but yeah.
And why do you not say it?
It's just not a good insult. Funny.
Like being a gay person, you take it offensively, but I don't think other people see it as being offensive, and they think, oh, I didn't mean it in that way. So.
Unfortunately, I used to say it myself as well, not realising the connotations of what that actually involved. But as it was explained to me, and as I grew up and learned the meaning of the word and how it could be used as an insult, it's not really acceptable, I feel, in this day and age to use it. It'd be like using a racist term in a derogatory fashion. It's an easy word to use as an insult, and it shouldn't be. It should be as powerful and derogatory as other terms which are out there to describe other groups of people. And the fact of the matter is that when people say you're so gay, they're usually meaning you're so feminine or you're so camp, and gay people are not all that. A few gay people are, but gay people represent so much more than that, so it's putting gay people into one small box when they're actually so much more than that.
Where are you from, and do you ever hear people say that's gay in a negative way?
Yeah, I'm from Salvador, Bahia, and yeah, we had a lot of prejudice in Brazil as well. Even we're not that liberal as people think we are.
Unless something is camp, I wouldn't call something I dislike gay, because it denotes that the default of being gay is wrong.
I think people, this is the time they should accept how people they are. Even some parents, they should express, because I'm Muslim, and my parents not gonna accept that anyway. They'll be say go away, and which is hard for me.
So been at London Pride all day today, been speaking to really a lot of people, and obviously being at Pride, everyone's very pro-gay, and almost everyone has said, I don't like it when people use the word gay in a negative way. And it's kind of reminded me how damaging language can be for people of all ages to hear. Also spoken to loads of people from around the world, Canada, France, Finland, Brazil, and it struck me that it's so widespread across the world to use the word gay in a negative way. What does that really say about the progress of gay rights internationally and how people around the world view gay people? America last night passed equal marriage in law, but there's kind of this contradiction of people using the word gay so negatively in everyday language so casually. So there were really a lot of people at Pride that thought that saying gay in a negative way is offensive, but I'm kind of aware that not everyone does think that way. And there's actually a professor at Durham University called Mark McCormack, and he's been doing research in 3 schools in the south of England, and he thinks it's harmless, it's not offensive to use the word gay negatively, because not everyone using it actually equates gay with being wrong. And he's actually speaking at a conference in UCL, so I'm going to go up there and go and meet him in London and hopefully find out more.
Doing the research with the young straight guys, they insisted they didn't use homophobic language. In over the year of collecting data, I never heard fag, puff, queer. I never heard homophobic language as I defined it there used at all. All the students said, no, we don't use it. Yet many of them would still use that's so gay. And they argued that it wasn't homophobic. There's no intent to marginalise with That's So Gay. It's when you've forgotten your book. It's when you get homework. It's like, God, it's so gay, I missed the bus. That was how they were using it. And actually, some of the students got annoyed when their straight friends apologised. Sorry, mate, I didn't know if that was homophobic or not. They didn't like that because that troubled the assumption they had that these norms were there and were shared. So at the moment, Theresa May is saying we need to combat homophobic bullying, but we shouldn't have sex education at 5 or sexuality education at 5. What we need is a proactive response that Lila's demonstrated, but beyond that as well, in terms of a sexuality education that spans the curriculum. I know when I was at school, I was told...
After the education conference came to an end, I asked Mark if I could catch up with him so I could find out more about how he'd come to the conclusion that saying that's gay isn't homophobic. He agreed to meet me and tell me a bit more about his research.
My research has explored how language related to homosexuality is changing as homophobia is decreased. So my research looks at how phrases like "that's so gay," which when I was growing up I experienced as homophobic because it was said by people who were being homophobic, who are using homophobic pejoratives like perf or queer, as well as stigmatising same-sex desire. When I heard "that's so gay" as homophobic, young people today aren't saying it in the same way.
Do you think there's a difference between old and young people when it comes to hearing "that's gay" as homophobic or not?
It's very hard for people who heard "that's so gay" solely as homophobic, like I did growing up, to see that it can mean something different to a different generation. How I talk to young kids about the changing nature of language and the problems with using "that's so gay" is you might know that you're not being homophobic, your friends might know that you're not being homophobic, but if you're using it in a public or a semi-public space, other people might see you as homophobic. And given that homophobia is increasingly condemned among young people, that's actually quite a powerful way of getting them to think about what "that's so gay" might mean to other people.
What do you think of Stonewall's campaign? Because they say that 84% of young people feel distress when they hear the word gay used negatively or as an insult.
I think Stonewall's reports and on their research into various issues related to sexuality and young people in particular, they're really important in telling us what bad experiences look like and how negative experiences of sexuality still exist, but they can't really be used as a generalisable source, as a source for understanding the context more generally. The main reason Stonewall statistics can't be used just as a fact is because there are issues when it comes to sampling. Doing quantitative surveys are actually very difficult, and doing them with sexual minority populations are even more complex. In the methodological literature, there's a saying, you don't sample on your dependent variable. So that means if you are looking to understand the experiences of LGBT people, you don't go to LGBT groups because you're only collecting the sample of the people who go to those groups. So to understand how LGBT people experience words like "that's so gay," you actually need to go to a broader sample, speak to a range of people. A Pew survey showed that only about 50% of gay people go to LGBT groups. Only 20% of bisexual people have ever been to an LGBT group. So if you sample through those groups, through those connections, you're only getting a fraction of the whole population of sexual minorities. And so I think that's a key issue which troubles kind of easy statistical arguments about words like "that's so gay."
Is it really possible that the word gay gaining a new negative connotation isn't offensive when there's still people that use that word to identify and describe themselves?
There's evidence that gay has actually just shifted in meaning. So young people, when they talk about gay as an expression of frustration, "that's so gay," they don't actually connect it in their heads with sexual identity. Just like "you suck" used to be homophobic, it used to mean "you suck dick," Bart Simpson came along and said "you suck," and a whole generation never knew of that link. Likewise, young people who've grown up hearing "that's so gay" just completely different from sexual orientation. And when you've got young straight people saying "that's so gay" at the same time as having gay friends, supporting gay rights, and hearing their own gay friends say "that's so gay," you can start to see how that connection is lost. Just like duck has two meanings dependent on how you're using it, so gay has two separate meanings for these people, and that's partly because of the context they've grown up in. Something else that might be helpful when thinking this through is that young gay people today and young sexual minorities today are less attached in general to the word of gay. Rich Severn-Williams in 2005 spoke about the new gay teenager who is less attached to that label. I've done research with bisexual youth who use bisexual as a label, but they do it kind of pragmatically. They don't particularly deeply identify as bisexual, but they just see it as the easiest way and the most and the least hassle way of talking about their sexual identities. So with these young people who even just have a kind of different way of thinking about their own sexual identity and more looseness with the label and the term gay, I think that also helps understand how maybe they are more open to having diverse meanings of the word gay as well.
But does using the word gay in a negative way not stem from being uncomfortable with gay people?
You know, I think it absolutely did once, but here's the issue. There are young straight guys who are supportive of gay rights. There are young straight guys who have gone on gay pride. There are young straight guys who have gay friends who are very proud of supporting equality, and they say that's okay. There needs to be a question, when are they actually finally allowed to say those words and to claim their own meanings to it? And I think that's a question that is helpful for us all to think about.
So I've just been to meet Mark, and it does definitely seem that young people have grown up with the word gay having a double meaning. And he made a really good point actually about the phrase "you suck," but how we no longer view that as being linked to gay people, and about how also we need to look at this issue from a broader perspective and also look at the context of schools, for example. However, the people I've met along this journey that say gay negatively have told me that they would censor their language in front of someone who they think or know is gay, and Mark did collect his data as an openly gay person in those schools. His conclusions really contrast with that of Stonewall, so it's obvious there's no clear-cut answer here.
Having heard all these statistics from both sides of the story, I want to hear from young people themselves what it's actually like to hear language that relates to their identity used negatively.
So this evening I'm coming to an LGBT support group to meet some young people who are still in school and college and find out what it's like to actually be LGBT today, and whether it's difficult hearing gay used negatively and what kind of effect it has on them.
Most young people weren't comfortable with being on camera and discussing issues that they're finding really difficult to deal with, but we had a great discussion about the things they hear people say or people say to them about being gay, and they wrote these down. It was very sad to hear, but they insisted that these kind of comments are really common. One person, however, was willing to speak to me on camera.
So what is it like to be LGBT at school today?
Quite different, because you're not like everyone else, like the normal stereotypical person. I think you have to be in LGBT to realise what the type of abuse you get to actually understand what it is like.
Yeah, so you feel like, it's actually like abuse, really.
I feel like some people do try to avoid you. Some people just get near you so they can pick on you. And I feel like some people don't really care, to be honest. It's quite difficult to get friends once everyone knows.
Do you hear like gay being used negatively when you're at school?
Yeah, a lot.
I also spoke to the volunteers who run the support group.
So, to be honest, actually, we get quite a lot of questions about why this thing still needs to exist, because people say that it's more acceptable to be gay now, they're coming out younger and younger, so why do we still need a gay group or an LGBTQ group? And that, just because people are more accepting, there are still a lot of issues there.
So what kind of issues are these young people facing by being LGBT?
To be honest, they have exactly the same issues that every other young person goes through, and then on top of that they've got sexuality or gender issues. And when you're being told that maybe sometimes you're not good enough or you don't hit a certain standard of what's expected of you, and then on top of that you've still got your exams and you've still got your parents who are maybe not very supportive, they are dealing with a lot of things. And I think that sometimes it can be difficult because they can't be so open about maybe why they're feeling so down, or if they're self-harming, maybe they can't talk about this to their parents. Their parents don't fully understand because they don't understand themselves.
Yeah, I think Gareth mentioned something quite important. I mean, they deal with the same issues as any young person would deal with. But I mean, some of the sort of primary issues that we find that we're facing is self-harm. That's quite prevalent with young people, that identifies LGBTQ, body image, alcohol and drugs, sexual health.
Do you think this trend of saying gay negatively has become so normalised and so common because young people like we've met tonight are finding it so difficult to challenge that language?
I don't think it's necessarily become normalised, and I think that's partly in thanks to the work of people like Stonewall who've really kind of emphasised the fact that people are saying this. I think it was in danger of becoming normalised, but now people are challenging it. And whether that's people from within the LGBT community or whether that's teachers or whoever, people are noticing the fact. And I think if it was so normal, we wouldn't be having this discussion. We don't want to make that normal. Mm-hmm. And also I think for as long as there are young LGBT people killing themselves because of who they are, I think it's really important that it isn't negative or isn't seen to be negative, isn't used in a negative way, because this has, I mean, the LGBT community do have a higher level of mental health issues, and that's part and parcel with the wider community using these kind of words, and it is important, I think, for everyone to challenge it. Whether you identify as LGBT or whether you are just an ally or whether you just notice it, because it might not offend you, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be said.
So I've just been speaking to these guys and volunteers that run the support group, and it's quite obvious that hearing gay negatively does have a really, really big impact on these people's lives. And although a lot of people I've met along the way have said that there's no intention to be homophobic, and that's something that, you know, I've really come to realise from meeting all these people. Hearing the word gay always made me personally feel quite uncomfortable, but I see now that it's not intended as an insult necessarily, and that's why a lot of people see it as harmless. But it does still have that power to hurt people and make it more difficult to come out, and it's just kind of really a sort of symptom of a much wider problem, which is that there's quite a big lack of understanding and awareness of what it actually means to be gay. And I think that's a problem that schools need to tackle. A lot of young people were saying this evening that it's something that's really missing from education. It takes support groups like this to give them that space and that opportunity to discuss issues like this. Maybe it's not that big a deal, but maybe actually we might look back on this in 20 or 30 years' time and think, actually, I can't believe people used to say, that's gay. And I think, yeah, I mean, there's this argument that language evolves and changes over time, but actually we are the people that change language, and we can decide whether gay equals rubbish.